producer. You've been in Goodfellas, and boy, do you have a great story about Goodfellas. You've been in SWAT. This Is Us. Most recently, is it being the Ricardos? You said Mom as well. I mean, you've got a resume about this long. If you just go on your IMDb, it's like, wait a minute, it keeps going and going.
Yeah.
And I love your work. Big fan, Peter.
Thank you.
But when we spoke off camera, you said to me, Deborah, one of the reasons why I became an actor is my Italian upbringing, my Italian heritage. Can you explain that to me?
Well, for my own humble research sample, growing up in a little town in New Jersey, my Italian American relatives and my Italian American heritage seems to have exposed me to a more emotionally sensitive sort of way of being than many of my friends. Italians. I mean, even if you go to ask anybody who's gone around Europe, the first thing they'll say is Italy is the greatest place to go. It's friendly. It's this and that. There's something about being Italian, and you have to differentiate too between being Italian American and Italian, just a little. But there's something about a sense of empathy, and I think Italians listen more than anybody else, and I think the reason is because they want to yell back at you that you're wrong, or whatever. But they listen, and all those qualities, empathy and being demonstrative, like Italians are known for being, are some of the greatest tools for acting. Listening is the greatest tool, and so that's where I think. I mean, I never thought I would be an actor, but I'm sure. And when I think about my maternal grandfather, my father's father died when I was very young, but my maternal grandfather, every time we took him someplace, we took him on vacation to the Jersey Shore, he disappeared, and then he came back to the motel, and then we all left to go on the boardwalk to go to get dinner. We walked past the shuffleboard court, and 20 people are going, "Hey, Danny! Hey, Danny!" It's like he was the mayor of the shuffleboard courts, and he'd been there 2 hours. So
that's my father. That is Tony, my father. It's like everybody knew Tony. I'm like, wait, Dad, how did you meet these people? Yeah, my mother would call him that too, the mayor.
And he's always like, "Oh, that's my friend. Yeah, that's over there. That's my friend." I say, "Yeah, when'd you meet him?" He goes, "Oh, a couple hours ago. We had a conversation. It was nice." And he played a little shuffleboard, and so I mean, again, I lived in a town that was heavily Italian, Irish, and Polish. Not to say that the other two weren't demonstrative and stuff, but I think there was a little bit higher experience coming from an Italian American background that made me a bit like my grandfather, and he had an incredible dry sense of humor. I remember one time, and that's some of the things that I learned too. For some of my comedy stuff is, I remember one time, my grandfather was a shoemaker, my mother's father, but he says, "No, I'm no shoemaker. I'm a cobbler. Shoemaker, it's an insult." I said, "Oh yeah, you've been a shoemaker for 50 years. Now you're a cobbler." So anyway, he thoroughly expected when he retired to go back and forth to Italy and be a big shot in the old country. But my grandmother got Parkinson's disease. So she was confined to the couch. And so he smoked, and he was forced to be on the porch anytime he smoked. So I came in one time, and he's on the porch smoking. And he goes, all of a sudden I hear this buzzer. And I go, "What the hell is that?" He goes, "Oh, I got to get up and move your grandmother around a little bit. I'll be right back." Right? So he goes in, takes my grandmother to the bathroom, whatever it was. 2 weeks later, I come in the driveway. He's out in the backyard in the tomato plant smoking and talking to the tomato plant. And all of a sudden, I hear a cowbell. The ding, the ding. I go, "What the hell is that?" He goes, well, your grandmother should break the goddamn buzzer already, right? So now we're walking back into the house, and he says to me, I tell you, Pete, 50 years I'm a shoemaker. Now I'm a cow. The ding, the ding, the cowbell's still ringing, right? So this is the kind of stuff that I grew up with, and so that's where I truly believe that it helped me. I don't want to say it made me an actor, but it sure as hell helped me.
Well, you had like a cast of characters in
Yeah,
your family, it sounds like. So let's
yeah.
face it, you could sort of pull from anywhere,
Oh
right?
yeah. My father, yeah.
Go ahead.
My father came
But
from five brothers,
oh,
and my mother
there's
came
always go
from
ahead.
three sisters. My mother and her two sisters, and my father's five brothers: Armando, Rocco, Paul, Valentino, and my father, Peter. And all of those guys were characters. My uncle Rocky was like Norm Crosby. He was constantly, but he didn't know he was doing it, constantly using malaprops, and he would get tongue tied all the time. He talked so fast, and he was hilarious. And the kids just loved being around him. And I mean, he didn't stutter. His mind got ahead of his mouth. So there were all these characters, and my grandmother too, my father's mother, who they owned the construction business together, and she said one time my wife, before we got married, was doing a show in the Poconos. So they would take the bus out from New York, her and her partner, and they take my car up to the Catskills, not the Poconos. And so they'd sit with an hour with my grandmother, because my car was in New Jersey. And before they drive up, and my grandmother says to my wife, she does perfect impersonation. She goes, "Oh, honey, you should have seen my shape. I was a daredevil, honey." Oh, and there's a story, which I didn't believe when I was a kid, but somebody else older told me it was true, that when the circus came to town, way back when she was younger, they had a challenge to do the high wire. She got up and she rode a bicycle on the high wire. And they said, come with us, come with us. She went, F you, honey, I got 5 kids. So where I'm going to go,
But this is why, honestly, you became an actor with this cast of characters in your family to pull from. I think it's why I became a journalist, because honestly, and I really mean it, Peter, I would think to myself, why? Why are you saying that? Who are you? What's your motivation? Like, nothing quite made sense to me. I loved them all, but it was always such a confusing situation. I was always like the youngest cousin, the youngest everything. And I would look up to everybody and think, why? I'm really convinced that's why I ended up a journalist, because I always had questions for the cast of characters, loving and all, that were in my family. Let's talk a little bit about, okay, you were in the world of business. You went to Fairleigh Dickinson University in New Jersey, and I'm from Jersey, so I know all these places. You were at first in business. I believe that you worked for Ford. You also worked for McCall's magazine. Right. How did you end up in comedy and acting from that?
First of all, I went to Fairleigh Dickinson just for my MBA. I graduated undergraduate from Lycoming College in Windsor, Pennsylvania. So I had done my master's thesis. At the time, I was dating a woman who worked for one of McCall's magazines. And I used to go in from New Jersey and meet her. And every other Friday night, we'd go to the Improv and stuff. And that was when Jerry Seinfeld was headlining, and Gilbert Gottfried and Joe Piscopo. They were all headliners there. So we'd ride back on the bus, and I'd go, I think I could do that. So she bought me a one-night stand class in comedy. And it turned out to be an improvisation class, not stand-up, which it was billed to be. So I did this class, and I had a lot of fun. And the people that were in it said, "Hey, you should do this." I said, No, I'm not an actor. I'm not an actor. At the time, I was still working for Ford. Then Ford laid me off, and I went in and I presented my master's thesis to McCall's, and they created a position for me as the director of marketing and research for 3 of their magazines. So now I hooked up with this group again and was doing all the dumps in New York City, the little places in New York City, and as a hobby, for like 4 years. And then my old girlfriend from McCall, she dumped me. And then uh, my my new girlfriend, now wife, who was an actress, a starving actress at the time. She came into the improv group, and I had my research published in advertising age, and I started getting calls of people trying to steal me away. And my boss got really mad when I told her, these people want to pay me this, they want to do this. So she made my life miserable. So I walked in and I quit because Jeanette, my wife, said to me, I think you could be an actor. So at the time, I owned my own house. I had money in the bank, and I said, let me give it a try. So
Ah,
I walked in and quit. I left them with a 200-page research document that all they had to do was update it. The job was done. The office was created. And within 2 weeks, I was on hold for a national beer commercial. Now, you got to remember, this is
wow.
1986. The stereotypes that they were casting for commercials were Bruce Willis, Bruce Springsteen, Billy Joel, and Tony Danza. Piece of each.
Wow. And do you know how hard that is? I mean, there were so many guys before you who would want that role, and you just sort of walked in and had what it took.
It was tough, and the thing was, I was doing improvisation, so I knew that I could sustain a character for a 30-second or 60-second commercial. So
Wow.
I marketed myself like that. I didn't even think about acting in serious
Yeah.
films or anything. I want to make a living. And within the first year of being an actor, I made twice what I made as a Park Avenue executive for McCall's.
That's almost impossible, okay? Because so many people, they go through it like 5, 10, 15 years, just scratching the surface.
Well, one of the reasons is because they're amassing life experience. I already had 12 years in the business world. I was
Yeah.
about to play for the next 20 years. I was about to play the person that I already was. I didn't have to
Right.
study anybody. I didn't have to leave my job waiting tables to go watch somebody in an office and do. That's what I was. So
Right.
I had all this experience. Plus, I had something else that no actors really have. I was completely insulated from failure. I had a savings account. I had my house, and I had a job that I loved and could have gotten back to. I had ad agencies calling me. I had marketing consulting
Wow.
firms calling me and wanting to pay me. And I said, let me just do this. If this doesn't work out, I'll call you. So, and I liked what I was doing, so I could have gone back to it. So I was really insulated. I walked into a room, auditioned, wanting it as bad as anybody else, but not needing it.
Yeah. What did the family say when they saw you in the commercial? And by the way, what was that commercial?
My first Screen Actors Guild commercial was United Airlines, and then my first big commercial was Miller Lite with Conrad Dobler. You can still find it on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, United Airlines is pretty big too. What were you, a passenger, a pilot? What did you play?
I was a lawyer. I was playing a lawyer, and it was the old "I Need a Vacation" campaign back in the '80s.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, that's funny. I got to look that up. I did not see that one. Oh, that's hilarious. But that's still pretty remarkable. Wow.
Yeah.
But what did the fam say? Because I remember when I was on TV for the first time back in New York, it was like, as a newscaster, they were like, the whole family would stop and they'd be like, yeah. Debbie's on. Everybody would stop and they'd turn on the news at 6:00. It was hysterical, really. I was kind of a quiet kid. And before that, nobody even knew I existed. All of a sudden I'm on the news and it's like, oh my God, stop. So my question is, what did they say when they finally saw you in commercials?
First thing my father said was, what the hell did you go to graduate school for? What the hell? But I waited till they were in their Florida house until I told them, I called them and I said, hey, I'm leaving my job for a little while. I'm going to try and become an actor. And all they said was, what?
I know.
And so, and they still didn't, I think till the day my father died, January 1st, 2019, he still didn't understand this business. And that's fine. I understand. Here's a great story. When my oldest son had his first birthday, my parents came out and I had just gotten done with my first big pilot. I finished a movie called Firebirds with Tommy Lee Jones and Sean Young and Nick Cage. And
big one. Yeah. So by now, hang on. By now you had moved to LA, right, with your wife. correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I told you the whole Kate and Alley thing. I was going back and forth to finish Kate and Alley, and then finally settled here. But just to talk about my family for a minute, I got done with the pilot of Cop Rock, Stephen Bochco's biggest flop and most over promoted show ever. It was a big deal to get a Bochco show. I got finished at 4 in the morning. I got up at 6 to prepare for my son's first birthday party, Sonny Sebastiano. And my father comes in from the guest house and he goes, so you're out of work now, right? No. I did the pilot. We'll go back to it. He goes, no. So you need money? What do you need? I said, no, I don't need anything, Pop. I'm all right. So, he didn't get it. He didn't understand that, this is the way this business works. And, all my life, I had this metaphor about hard work, and hard work, as I knew it, was always physiological. I pushed the wheelbarrow faster and with more material on it than anybody else, and I'd make more money, And in this business, that metaphor turns around to you just work like crazy at your auditions and in between and marketing yourself. That's pushing the wheelbarrow, and the payoff is when you finally get something. But I've always been a physiological person, and I didn't get this business myself for the first 5 years,
It's very unnerving. You seem to have the stomach for it, though, Peter, right?
Yes,
You just go on to the next one, right? Because that pilot, I believe, right, was not picked up. Am I correct?
No, Cop Rock was picked up. It got canceled.
Oh, it was
mid-season.
Oh, that's what I meant.
Mostly there's 11 episodes that a company called Shout Factory has on, and they just sold out of them a couple of months ago because what's his name on last week tonight? Oliver, John Oliver. He used a clip from Cop Rock for something, and this Shout Factory sold out of the Cop Rock series that they have on DVD. So no,
wow.
It was out there. And then I went to work for Bochco again. But you're right, I was out here. I had gone back and forth for the last season of Kate and Alley because we moved out here, and Jeanette was pregnant with Sonny. My wife got pregnant 9 months, or delivered 9 months and 1 day after our wedding.
That was a very busy wedding, a very busy honeymoon, I have to say.
All her
great timing.
Yeah, all her Mennonite relatives went, phew. And of course, my Italian relatives from Jersey went, hey, that Petey knows how to shoot, right?
So you were working in New York, Kate and Alley. Where did they do that? At the Sullivan Theater, right?
Yeah.
Very historic place. I know that you walked into the dressing room where the Beatles, right, had been, and wow, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, it was great. And at the end of each hiatus, all the techies would gather where the end of the proscenium used to be in the Ed Sullivan Theater. And then we'd go down and do this little tour through the bowels of the Ed Sullivan Theater and come up in McGee's Pub. At one time, the Ed Sullivan Theater was never dark. It went the Jackie Gleason show. It went Gary Moore show, Truth or Consequences, the Ed Sullivan show.
Wow.
It was dark. So the funny thing is, you open the back door to McGee's Pub, and there's a black velvet painting of Gary Moore. So
wow.
Gleason used to go down and take a pop in between scenes at his show. It was great.
So much history in that show. In that theater, I should say. I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been in it. I've been to shows there. It's pretty amazing when you get to step on stage, right, at a place that so many have been before you, and you're like, wait, is this really real? Yeah. So let me take you now to LA. One of the funniest stories I've ever heard about was when you read for Scorsese. Right. Would you tell us about that for Goodfellas? How did you get that part?
So I was finishing the last season of Kate and Alley. The very last episode we filmed in front of an audience on Thursday night. Friday at 2:30, I had a flight out of JFK for my first son's birth. He was due that Monday. And I get a call back for Scorsese in Rockefeller Center at 12:30. So I called my wife. She was already here in LA. And I said, well, I got to take this, if I miss the flight, I miss it. I'll come, I'll get another one, So at that time, I was still kind of new to the business. I'd only been in the business a couple of years. And being an ad man and in sales and my whole career, I always wanted to make the meeting mine. It didn't matter who it was. The best thing was to make the meeting mine. So at that point, for little scenes like I got in Goodfellas, Scorsese was giving all the same scenes, we call them sides, to everybody, but he was hiring for the smaller parts real mob guys or cops that chased real mob guys, right?
Oh.
So I walk into the outer office of casting, and there's all these guys with silver sweatsuits and patent leather sneakers, and they're smoking cigars. And one of them looks at me and he goes, "What are you reading for?" I go, "Well, I got the sides for Sonny Bamboo." He goes, "You know him?" I go, "No, I don't know him." He goes, "I know him. You don't look nothing like him." I go, "Well, sorry, that's what they gave me." He goes, "All right, God bless you, kid." Right? So that's not
Oh my God.
not nerve-wracking enough. I got to go in and read for Scorsese. So I get inside to read. I believe it was Alan Lewis that was there, and I said, to make the meeting mine, I made up a story because my grandfather that I told you about, the shoemaker, his last name is Scorsese, exact same spelling, but without the S. So I made up a story to Scorsese. I said, before we read, I need to ask you if we're related, because I said to my grandfather, Donato Scorsese, I said, I'm going to read for the big director, Martin Scorsese, today. And my grandfather said, "Wow, I think so. We have a cousin one time, which taken the S out of the name." So Scorsese goes, "Really? Really? Because we can't find our relatives." I'm going, "Oh, shit. I'm really screwed now."
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
So I go, "Well, where are you from?" He goes, "We're from Sicily." I go, "No freaking way. We're not Sicilians." He goes, "What are you?" I go, "We're Napolitans." He goes, "You guys drink too early in the morning. You want to do this?" "Yeah, let's do it." So I read the scene and I ended up getting a part.
Wow. But did you ever tell him that you don't? Oh my God. You didn't tell him.
No, I didn't have a chance to tell him. I mean, there was one scene, the first scene that I did, I played the Florida bookie that turned him into the FBI for the first time. It gets thrown to the lions and, or threatened to throw him to the lions. So, I mean, we never had a conversation except about the scene, I mean, there was one point where they're smashing me. So Scorsese comes in, he says, "All right, Bobby De Niro is going to smash you into the front seat 2 times. Then you come up, you say your first line, and Ray's going to punch you. You say another line, then Bobby's going to punch you. So 2 times the front seat, punch, right? Action. Boom, boom. I said, boom, cut." Scorsese comes over, he goes, I said, we can lose the line if you want to lose." He goes, no, I want the line. I didn't want to say, De Niro can't count. You said 2 times, and he said 3 times. So,
Oh no.
those are the kind of conversations we had, after that. I never got to tell him. And then,
wow.
And then we're doing the master of the fight, and then they come over and they take Ray Liotta's close-ups, and they start from the middle of the scene. They pick it up. So when they turn around to get De Niro's close-ups, he goes, "If you don't mind, I don't like to pick it up from the middle of the scene. I like to start from the top." And I go, "Little method, huh, Bobby?" He goes, my De Niro face.
Wow. What was De Niro like? I mean, were you a little bit in like big time awe when you were
on the set with him? I was to a certain point, but it was 2:00 in the morning. I had all this horrible blood makeup on me. I hadn't eaten and everything, so I was kind of in a daze anyway, Lunch was like 2:30 in the morning, and I got back in the car and they served lasagna. I'm sitting there, and De Niro looks at me, goes, "What's the matter?" I go, "I had the catering, was lasagna." He goes, "Oh, no. You got to go and clean. You got to go and clean." I go, "You could go and clean. You got a friggin' chef in your trailer. I got to eat what they give me,
How about Ray Liotta?
Ray was great, and Ray and I had a conversation. Ray's from New Jersey too. Um,
Yeah.
Ray and I had a conversation, which was actually a little bit of an education in the business for me. At the time, I was the Tom Cruise movie, Rain Man. Rain Man was a
Right.
big hit while we were filming this.
Right.
2 years before, Ray Liotta did what I think is one of his greatest performances. He did a wonderful movie called Dominic and Eugene. It was him and Tom Hulse.
Right.
Almost the same kind of, Ray was an older brother and he had a disturbed, mentally disturbed younger brother was Tom Hulse. And it was a wonderful small movie, and so I sat there, we're sitting there, it's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I said, what's the deal, man, with Rain Man? It's a nice movie. I said, but Dominic and Eugene was so much better. He said, are you kidding me? Tom Cruise, Dustin Hoffman, Tom Hulse and Ray Liotta. What do you think's gonna get the big? I said, okay, I get it. Yeah, I get it. Star driven, I get it. But Dominic and Eugene was a great movie.
Yeah, I haven't heard the name Tom Hulse in a while. He was an incredible actor. You really brought me back to that. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your family. Where are they from in Italy?
So my father's father is from a little town called Bovilernica, which is just above the bigger town of Frosinone, which is an hour south of Rome.
Yeah.
My father's mother is from Abruzzo, a little town called Civatel del Tronto. It's near Ascoli Piceno, which is in the center of the province of Abruzzo. And then my mother's family is from, I guess it's near Campania. It's called Potenza, a little town called Muro Lucano on a mountain. And so they're both from the same town, but my father's parents were from separate areas. I was just back in 2018 for my 30th anniversary, and I met my cousins in Frosinone, and I spent some time with them, and it was wonderful. The family owns a hotel, but it's not open because I think it went to some member of the family who had some problems, and the place is closed up. But it was a beautiful hotel that I actually not stayed at, but had dinner at in 1978 when I went with my parents. But they also have a restaurant. One of them manages a hotel. So we just had a really wonderful, wonderful time with them. And I still connect with them. And I've been wanting to get back over there, but with COVID and everything, can't do it.
I know. How wonderful, though, to connect with the family back in Italy. It's funny, when I met my family for the first time in Italy, I scratched my head and I thought, why would anybody want to leave this? But we all know it was different circumstances, right, when they came here in the first place looking for work. But it's wonderful to go back because I feel so close to my heritage. I know you do as well. I know you're trying to get your own citizenship there, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. Back in 1978, my brother and I went with my mother and father and my aunt and uncle. It was our last trip with our parents. And we went to Italy, and we ended up in Frosinone. And at the time, the Hotel Bracaglia, that's the family that my grandfather's niece married. She was an Onorati. She married into the Bracaglia family. And so we get there, and they catered 2 weddings of almost 200 people, and they still served us a 6-course meal on the
I know.
This woman, Yolanda, the matriarch, she wasn't there. I think I might have mentioned the story to you. So when she came back, by that time, we had 4 courses and a couple bottles of wine, and I was pretty well lit. And when I looked at her, now my father's father died when I was 8 years old, but I remember him. And I have a great memory, and that's one of the things that helps me in acting as well. But right here in Yolanda's eyes was my grandfather.
Oh.
And I started to get emotional, and then this put me over the edge. My aunt that came with us, my father's sister-in-law, my uncle Armando's wife, Yolanda the matriarch said at the table, because it was just my mother and my Aunt Julia, she said, which one of you is the one who had the daughter who was killed in the car accident? You know, because the family always communicated, sent money and everything else. And my Aunt Julia said, that was me. And she said, do you have a picture of her? And Aunt Julia pulled out a picture and she said, Yolanda said, can I keep this? Aunt Julia said, sure, you could keep it. She said, I'm going to put it up on the picture of my husband and my son that I pray to every day, who were killed outside the hotel in a car accident. So now I start bawling. And my brother goes, what the hell's the matter with you? And I said, I felt like such deep roots and such family, you know?
Right. You felt these people as an extension of who you are. I understand that. And there's something about being Italian. I don't know. We just really feel that closeness to where we are from. Let me circle back for just a moment to all the work that you've done, whether it's on JAG, This Is Us, SWAT, The Rookie, Station 19, Blue Bloods, CSI, The Fugitive, NCIS, NYPD Blue, Touched by an Angel. Oh my gosh, you've been in so much, Peter. Is there a favorite moment, favorite show, favorite anything that stands out to you? That as you look back at your long career, that you go, wow, that was something.
I think my favorite was Cop Rock.
Was what?
Cop Rock. The one I told you about, the Bochco, the first.
With Stephen Bochco. Okay. Why?
Because Stephen, well, for my career, Stephen made a leading man.
Yeah.
Before that, I did comedy and I did a couple things, but he made me into a leading man, and he put me in another series right after that with Mariel Hemingway called Civil Wars. But
that was tremendous. That's a tremendous show, Civil Wars. Oh my gosh, I forgot to mention that. Go ahead.
Cop Rock was a moment that will never happen again in television. Glee did it, but not the same way.
Right.
And who gets? And I'm not a trained singer. I got to sing 3 songs on television. My wife has an incredibly gorgeous voice, and she's somewhat trained. You know, she's a writer producer now, but she hasn't done anything in a long time. And I'm the one that sings on TV. I mean, you know, and so not only was it a great chance, but it was one of the most creative moments of my whole career. And just to show you, you talk about family.
Yeah.
There were like 10 regulars in that show, which is a lot. Everybody would show up on their day off to watch someone else sing their number.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, and you know
that's really cool.
Sheryl Crow sang background in 2 episodes of that. Wow. Carl Anderson sang 2 big songs. He played Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar in the movie. We had 2 Academy Award-winning songwriters. We had Amanda McBroom, who wrote The Rose, and we had Donnie Markowitz, who I'm still friends with, who wrote Time of My Life for Dirty Dancing. They were just 2 of like 6 or 7 songwriters, you know?
Wow.
So it was, to me, that was the greatest moment of my career. It didn't turn out to be a success, but it was the greatest moment, you know?
And a success for you, that's for sure.
Well, it was a springboard for me, for sure.
Definitely. So we would love to have you come down to our little Italy in Los Angeles. A lot of people are like, because it's fairly new, you know, we're developing it, right? It's down in San Pedro where so many Italians came, because there's a lot of us in Los Angeles. A lot of people are like, where? I'm like, well, we're all over, we're spread out, but we finally decided to have a little area called Little Italy of Los Angeles. So we'd love to invite you down there sometime for a meal, one of our events or whatever. Yes. But before I let you go, tell me what you're working on next. What are you doing? I think you're writing something, right?
I wrote a play that we workshopped at the Actors Studio where I'm a member, and it's about being Italian-American. It's called Under Construction, and the subtitle is A Play in 7 Sacraments, because each scene is preempted by the upstage wall is a projection of the catechism definition of each of the sacraments.
I
And
love it.
and then I'll send it to you so you can read it. But it
Yeah.
really, it's kind of a commentary on what we've been talking about. In that, I think the theme of it is why we do what we do without asking questions, why we hold to certain traditions and stuff without asking anybody. Whether it's religion, it discusses religion, it discusses cooking, it goes through all these things uh, that we accept, especially as Italian Americans. We accept these traditions and we continue them on. But all of a sudden, a sister asks her brother, "Why are you doing that?" He goes, "That's the way Pop did it." Yeah, but why? That's the way Mom did it. Yeah, but why? It's the right way. That's the right way. And so it's funny to see what happens with somebody who has gone outside the family, a certain amount anyway, comes back in and questions things. And you have to come up with answers. There's one great part where he talks Anthony. Oh, the family name is D'Antonio. It's Anthony D'Antonio and Antoinette D'Antonio.
I
So,
love the names.
right.
Anthony and Antoinette.
And so Antoinette is called Tony, and Anthony is called Anthony in the play, right? So there's a point where they discuss a relationship. He's just broken up with his girlfriend, and Antoinette says, "Well, why'd you break up?" He goes, "Well, she didn't want to have kids, and I wanted to have kids." And she said, "Well, then she goes, why do you want to have kids?" He goes, "What do you mean, what I want to have kids? What kind of question is that?" You know, I said, "Okay." I say, "Evolution." She goes, "Evolution?" He goes, "Yeah. When two people get married, they take the best parts of both of them and they put it into their kids so the kids grow up better than they are. That's evolution." She goes, "Well, it's not exactly evolution, but I get what you're talking about. So, and she says, "But it's not very logical." He goes, "Are you kidding me? What's logical about having kids?"
I love it. Very true. And so Italian, I have to tell you.
Yeah.
Very true and so Italian. Gosh, yeah. Peter, you are so full of so many beautiful, beautiful stories. I hope to have you back on the show. Can we do that? Have you back? And will you let us know too about this, because you're turning this into a play, right?
Yeah, it's written. It's in. I think I'm gonna start submitting it pretty soon.
Really? That would be exciting. God knows I miss going to the theater. I have to tell you. I mean, they're starting up, they're closing down. They're starting up, they're closing down. A lot of great small theater here in Los Angeles too. That would be wonderful. Any parting words, Peter Onorati?
No, just no.
You're only just starting, right? I feel like you've got a lot of years ahead of you in this business.
Well, you know what, and that's funny because I often think now at my age whether or not I want to retire, because I can do what I'm doing until I'm 90 if I can remember a line. Like Betty White, right. Perfect example. But I don't know what I want to do. I mean, a couple of years ago I lost my parents within 3 weeks of each other, and it made me look at things and say, okay, even though I can do this, do I want to? When do I want to get that little house in Italy? And how much time do I want to spend there? And I spent a little time in one of my apartments that's on a beautiful river in my hometown of New Jersey, and then spend a little time in a little house that we have in Santa Barbara. I'm not there financially. I'm close, but another series would just do the trick. But then again, I'd have to retire, which is it's okay. I mean, if I can write and get stuff out there. I got a couple little books. I wrote a kid's book that almost got published. I pulled it back because I wasn't sure if it was really done yet. And then,
right.
I'll get some writing lessons from my wife, who's successful as a writer producer, and see what happens. I'm actually pitching a sitcom based on my family's construction company. And it's very funny. I wrote it with a woman named Gina Ippolito, who is from my hometown. We only just met. She's been out here in California for 12 years. But her mother came up to me in a Walmart one time and said, "My daughter's out there. You should." I nobody got in touch with me. So Gina and I have just struck up a relationship. And it's interesting because there's a synergy when we're writing, she gets where I'm going with stuff because she's from my hometown. She's Italian, and I don't have, she can finish my jokes and I can finish hers.
Yeah. We could finish each other's jokes. Believe me, each other's sentences. There's so much that we have in common, being from the same place, being Italian, from New Jersey. Now here we are out here, living the life in Los Angeles and enjoying every minute of it. Gosh, Peter, thanks so much for joining us on our Little Italy of LA podcast. It's been a pleasure. I've so enjoyed getting to know you, and I hope to see you outside of the screen too. That would be great. So please look up Peter's work. Look up the Ricardos. You'll see him there. It's a smaller part, but who cares? We just watched it the other night. It was terrific. So I am your host. Go ahead. Sorry.
You can go to peteronorati.com and there are clips of all my work.
Right. And it keeps going and going and going. And like I told you, I was on your IMDb. I thought, wait a minute, is this a carousel? And it wasn't. It's just you've done so much work. And terrific website, too. You're right. PeterOnorati.com. All your work, everything you're doing. And if you want to reach out to them, reach out on social media, right? Or they could write to you through your website as well. Thank you again for joining us, Little Italy of LA. We'll have you down sometime. And thank you, everybody, for watching and listening to our podcast. We'd love your comments. I'm Deborah Kobylt. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.